Hello, and welcome to part 2 of my story about COVID. Now, what I haven't mentioned so far is that I think it was around March, I was watching on YouTube a CNN clip. So the CNN reporter was sitting in Lagos, in Nigeria. And what they've got there is one of the biggest roads in the center of the city. There's a market situation that happens every day. That whole road is blocked with stalls. So people are selling anything and everything, and all the people are shopping there. I assume there's no rent unless there's a mafia-style operation that collects rent from these people. It's literally something where thousands and thousands and thousands of people gather and buy their basics and whatever else is sold there. The CNN reporter went to a couple of black guys that was sitting on a wall and asked them, wear their masks. Because why is nobody wearing masks? Aren't they scared of COVID? And the guy that answered just said, COVID is a white man's disease. They're not scared of it at all. And with hindsight, I think he was absolutely correct. I know in this country, quite a lot of black people did die from COVID. But I think in Africa, most of the countries didn't do very much about lockdowns and stuff. I know, for instance, that Brazil, the president of Brazil, absolutely refused to go into lockdown for his country because it would break the country's economy. Yet our country had gone in full steam with an extremely hard lockdown, very close to what China was doing. Now, what I haven't said so far is that 2 items were specifically barred from being sold during lockdown. And the first was cigarettes, and the second was alcohol. Alcohol in South Africa is a problem. The guys drink and get drunk and start fighting and end up in hospital with stab wounds and whatever. And it's one of the reasons why there are no bars on the beaches in South Africa. There's a huge portion of our population can't swim. And if you started selling alcohol on the beach, they would think they could swim and they would go and drown. And that's why there are no bars on the beach in this country. So alcohol is an issue. But what government had done by banning the sale of cigarettes and alcohol was that lost very large tax revenue streams for government. And also as being, under normal circumstances, driving around in vehicles, these very large tax stories with fuel that we pay. We probably pay double the amount of money per litre of fuel that we should pay, and it's all the different taxes that are put in place for each litre of fuel that we buy. We've got very expensive fuel in this country. So government had lost huge revenue streams by the measures that they took in lockdown. And it was explained to us that we must be very grateful to government because they were saving our lives. Now, like I've said, I was very anti-lockdown. I still am very anti-lockdown with hindsight. Our hospitals were never full to overflowing. The extra facilities they put in place were never used at all. Not one person went in to those facilities, like the International Conference Centre in Cape Town. So all of that money was spent and not used. So we sat there throughout the whole of the end of March, the whole of April, the whole of May, under those rules. What I can remember very specifically is on the 1st of June of 2020. And the reason I can remember this is because the 1st of June is my birthday. And in 2020, I happened to be turning 60 years old. So that's quite a big birthday. What they allowed was the sale of alcohol to take home to drink from that Monday. And the guys that were staying at my house put money together, and they went and they bought from the closest bottle store. We call them bottle stores where you buy alcohol. They bought me a bottle of Glenmorangie whiskey, which is not too expensive, but it is quite expensive. Single malt whiskey, very nice. And I can remember at 9 o'clock in the morning, I had it on the table outside my house. So I've got some whiskey. We haven't had any alcohol since March. But I needed a cigarette, and you can't buy a cigarette because the sale of cigarettes is still bad. But we had been getting cigarettes from here and there and whatever, and the guys, when you smoke a cigarette, that last little bit of tobacco that wasn't burnt, they put it out so you could roll the cigarettes. I can remember trying to scratch around to find some tobacco to burn, just to have a cigarette with this whiskey. That was a problem. I can remember moaning and groaning. I know somebody shot a video of the story. That's the sort of circumstances we're living in. Now, the alcohol sales, they warned us within a day or two. People were being taken into hospital with stab wounds, etc. That if the population carried on like that, they'd ban the sale of alcohol again, which they did. 2 weeks later, no more alcohol sales. Now, the whole population at this stage was getting fairly irate with these controls that were being put on us. In fact, the journalists, South African journalists that were writing, were warning government that they were in the process of driving their own voters away from them because they were overdoing this whole lockdown story, making it too harsh. You know, it was so crazy that one of the things that will happen in South Africa, I'm sure anywhere in the world, but the blacks who are very good at that, they can make their own beer. You basically make it out of crushed corn, which is their staple meal. They boil it into a porridge. They call it pap. And they eat it for breakfast or with their meat and gravy and whatever. But if you ferment that, it makes the traditional beer. And what the government had also done is banned the sale of yeast, just to prevent people from making their own alcohol. This was how harsh the stories were. And so when the sale of alcohol was banned a second time, so now this is middle of June, the population in South Africa had had enough of these restrictions. Cape Town is known for 2 things. One is the international tourism, because of the mountain and all the other things that come with it. And the second thing is wine farms. So we're sitting with all of this wine around that the farmers are not allowed. They've harvested early 2020. They've turned the grapes into wine, and they're sitting with this wine in their cellars. They might be in big tanks. It might have been packaged, whatever, but they're not allowed to sell their wine. All of a sudden, you started getting messages on WhatsApp about what adult grape juice is available, where to get it and how much it is. And it was all sold in 5-litre plastic containers, no branding, nothing. More or less at the same price that we had been paying for the same product. But this time the farmer's getting all of that money, or possibly an intermediary is involved that takes it from the farmer and sells it in the city. There's no tax going to government. So the black market started with a vengeance. And then the cigarettes started coming on board. That the people that had these little cigarette shops and whatever, or the small supermarkets, illegal cigarettes, they're only illegal because they have not gone through the normal channels to give government the money. They were called stolen cigarettes. Nobody's stolen them. It's just that government hasn't been paid all of the taxes and duties and whatever that they expect to be paid for the sale of cigarettes. And this black market flourished. It absolutely boomed. Cigarettes were probably costing about 4 or 5 times what you'd normally pay for them. You had to smoke a whole lot less. But the alcohol, like I said, was more or less the same price. You're doing the farmer a favor. Because the farmer sitting there, absolutely zero income, like everybody else with their own business in South Africa, absolutely zero income. Me, for instance, my maid was from Malawi. And obviously, in South Africa, xenophobia is a huge issue. The government did not pay any foreigner any money. And we've got a huge population from Zimbabwe, legal and illegal, working in this country. There's no work in Zimbabwe. There's no economy in Zimbabwe. Also, to a less extent, but Malawi. They're all reasonably educated people, better educated than in our country, especially the Zimbabweans. And they work harder. You want to employ them. It's a huge issue in this country. Anyway, I can't really remember, but things very slowly, and I think it was around August, September, as a restaurant was then allowed to start selling takeaways only, or a coffee shop, whatever it was. No sit-down people. I can't remember how all of this happened. They'd open up clothing, that you could actually go and buy some clothing. But in this government, they produced a list of the clothes that were not allowed to be sold. And it included T-shirts, flip-flops, those kind of clothes, is to keep us safe from COVID. We weren't allowed to buy those kind of clothes because that would make us more liable to catch COVID. Everything was absolutely drilled down. This sort of central control that our politicians love having. That's the end of part 2. I'm going to finish off with part 3. Thank you so much for watching.